The way my story starts off is I was an architectural draftsperson for a company in Baltimore, and that was after I mass mailed 300 resumes up and down the East Coast because I had lived out in Nevada for 3 years with my then estranged husband, and I wanted to get a job, and I took the first thing that came to me, and it was at an architectural and engineering house. And I wasn't there very long. They put me into permitting, probably about 2, maybe 3 months after I had been there. And once I was there for a while, I decided to hang out my own shingle, and that was September 1st, 1986.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
So that's
that
40 years almost, huh?
36 years. Yeah, 36, 37 years. And while I was, right after I signed all the paperwork, did all the online stuff to get the business paperwork up and running, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
My husband and I had reconciled, and I was pregnant with her. And 2.5, 3 weeks after I gave birth, she and I went permitting. So when you're the chief cook and bottle washer, you don't have anybody to take your place when you're down. And so Jennifer and I went all over Maryland and Virginia doing permitting. I think she could probably do a permit by the time she was 8 years old, the way she was going. But the economy tends to affect my business as far as the permitting part is concerned more than anything, and politics. And when you have people, whether it be in the state legislature or in Congress, who've never held a job other than in politics, they've never signed the front of a paycheck, they've never had to worry about making payroll or anything like that, when they make stupid decisions and throw the economy into a tailspin, that typically hurts my business
Sure.
badly. And then there's no building going on. But what happens is when we go into a recession, your fast food, grocery stores, and hospitals, they take the money that they're still getting, because people still have to eat and people still get sick. So all of the money that they're accumulating, if they don't want to have to pay taxes on it, then they do renovations to their buildings, or they do a nationwide, like for Taco Bell, they'll do a whole new package, or they all do it that way. So when the chips are down financially, those sectors continue, but it really isn't enough to keep my business afloat whenever the recessions hit. And I think I have weathered probably 4 or 5 over the 30 some years that I've been in business. You have the financial crisis that took it out of everybody, and now COVID has added a whole brand new twist to everything, because now everything's online, and if you walk into a permit office, they think you're there to hurt somebody. Why are you here? Don't come in here. Go away. And what used to take me 2 hours now takes me 2 months or better. So,
Wow.
But prior to COVID, my son and I were in the process of him taking over the permitting business. And there was an opportunity that presented itself for the Carroll Indoor Sports Center, which is right down at the end of my street. Christopher had played soccer here. He ran track here. The guy that built the place initially was a track coach. And so he did 2 soccer fields, and then he would open up the wall that separated them and turn it into one big indoor track.
Right.
And then he ended up by working here, and the folks that owned the place had been trying to sell it. 8 different people had put bids in, and when it got to underwriting, nobody wanted to do it. I came up with a unique way to buy the business and make the previous owners happy. And I'm happy to say that we made our last payment on the business. It is ours free and clear October of last year. So Instead of him taking over the permitting, we got into this 66,000 square foot, two buildings. We have 3 soccer fields and a basketball court, a party room, a snack bar. And this was way, way, way out of my wheelhouse. But Christopher really wanted to do it. We found a way to do it. And that was 6 years ago. So
Tell me this, right? So 6 years from the perspective of the people that are watching that are trying to kind of adapt their entrepreneur ideas into their real life. How long of that 6 years did it take for you to feel? Excuse me.
bless you.
Thank you. How long of that 6 years did it take to feel just like super, super comfortable in this new thing?
Well, believe it or not, it probably took me about a year and a half. Soccer people have a different attitude. I mean, you hear about soccer moms, and that designation still seems to hold true, unfortunately. But it's just a different mindset that you have to know which battles to pick. So some people would come in with the chip on their shoulder, or they thought they were the next Pele, or their kid was the next Pele. Excuse me. And you have to be the one that says, sorry, it's not, that's not how that works here. But I'd say probably about 18 months for me to really get into that groove, because it probably would have been quicker, but that was still in the process. That the way the busy season works with the indoor center is things start kicking into gear about mid-October, when we start gearing up for the winter session, and then it's like balls to the wall until mid-March. For permitting, I don't have much that goes on between November and March. Hopefully all the stores that want to be built are built, and they hit the Christmas season, and everybody takes the rest of the year off and gets back into gear
Right.
around for April of the following year. So then I would do permitting kicks in high gear when things start to slow down around here. But we also have a summer camp here, and that sort of broke into my time because I do all the cooking for the kids.
All right.
So it's a lot of fun, but
Sure.
there's the challenges, I think, that I see in most businesses, whether they're friends with them or competitors, whether it be in permitting or here with the indoor center, is that most people will come up with an idea and then they second guess themselves.
Sure.
And don't be afraid to take the leap. If you already had the courage to take the leap to go into business, continue to take those leaps. Now, you're gonna crash on a couple of them, but others, you're going to be on cloud 9. You're going to sail, and you're going to be a happy camper because it was your idea and you saw it through. And there's nothing more satisfying than coming up with a crazy idea and somebody says, there is absolutely no
Sure.
way. I always say, okay, here, hold my iced tea. Let me show you how it's done. And see, that was one of the big hurdles that I had to deal with in the very beginning of the permitting. It was still in that mindset that there weren't very many females running around in
Sure.
the construction. And understand, I am not a Me Too person. I love men. I love guys. I have no problem with men. But in a male-dominated field, sometimes it is a little difficult for some industries to get up off the ground, and permitting is one of those. And I had one guy, since my business was in the house, brought him in. We sat at my dining room table, talked over everything, and then he decided not to go with me because he said, well, I just think you're a frustrated housewife working from your kitchen table.
Good God.
Jeez. So what I did then, instead of having the meetings at my house, I started having them at a restaurant. and we would have lunch or we would have coffee or tea or something along that line, then that wasn't that didn't go with the persona that I wanted. I didn't want it to
Sure.
be off of my dining room table.
Sure.
I understand why he felt that way. So you adapt. And if you can adapt through anything, because life and politics and people are always going to throw monkey wrenches in, and how you respond to them is what makes or breaks a lot of businesses. We watched so many different businesses go down the drain with COVID, and we took a hell of a chance when everybody got shut down March 16th in Maryland. My grandson at the time was, I think he was 12, maybe 10 or 11 or 12, and he was starting to show signs of depression. And it's like, nah, this is not good. So against my son's caution, we opened up and advertised like hell that we were having our summer camp. Come hell or high water, we were having our summer camp. And we only had about 20, 25 kids. But those 20 or 25 kids got to come in, play like kids, and have a normal day 5 days out of the week. They didn't have to worry about wearing a mask. They didn't have to worry about touching something that they weren't supposed to touch, or whatever the case was. They were just able to have fun and be a kid. And it really made a big difference. And then a lot of the parents did not have the means to let their kids continue to stay home because everything was still virtual.
Right.
And so what we did was we offered the extended camp. My apologies, I'm trying to get it to stop. Trying to walk into a different room. Anyhow, the what we did was what we call extended learning, and we gave each kid a picnic table for them to sit at. They had their laptops with them, and then in between all of their classes that they were having, they could go play on the field. We had bounce houses and stuff like that down here for them. We still fed them lunch like it was for summer camp, and it made a big difference in those kids' lives and the parents' lives. And customer service is it sometimes can be a sticky wicket with customer service. You don't want to give them too much, because if you do, then they walk all over you. And
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
kind of a
want
double-edged sword.
Yeah,
You can over-service for sure.
My rule, or my what I go by is, if it were me, how would I want this to be resolved? If it were me, how would I react? And I try to put myself in their shoes long enough to get an honest response so I can respond accordingly.
Sure.
And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, especially when you have someone coming in, Mach 3 with their hair on fire, and they look like they want to rip you from limb to limb, and you not get in a defensive stance and say, okay, bring it. So,
absolutely.
And we get some of those folks in here sometimes because the referee made a bad call, or their kid's not getting the right stats, and it's just frustrating when they come in, and you have to find a way to be able to cool their jets, but not let them think that that kind of behavior is acceptable.
Well, one of the things that I think is very, very interesting about both the community center business and the permitting business, and about you specifically, is that most businesses, they usually only have one of these two types of resolutions to make, either with their customers or with people internally in their company. But you either have companies that deal with a lot of little things over and over and over and over and over again, right? Like, I would call that, like, the restaurant space deals with many different problems, and no two, for the most part, ever the same and dealt with individually. And then my company, being in the payment space, even though customer service, I guess, would kind of fall into that, each thing's kind of different, but most of those things are pretty consistent. But our business absolutely revolves around sticking to a plan and being super consistent in your resolve to stick to and uphold that plan for a really, really long time. And to bring that full circle, what I think is so interesting about your business is that you get both of those things. On a daily basis, you experience something you've probably never experienced before when it comes to working and maintaining a relationship with kids that want to play sports and parents that want to be parents to their kids, as well as what you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis changes. You guys still have these things that you stick to, like clockwork year round. Things like the summer camp, things like fall sports, spring sports, all of those things are very, very consistent for you guys. So I feel like if there is one thing to take away from this, from an entrepreneur perspective, from a skills perspective, is really just the ability to discern which one of the things that you're dealing with falls into what of those categories and how you're going to tackle it, right? Like, there's going to be things that are out of your control. There's going to be things that happen to your employees that are out of their control. There's going to be all of those things. Additionally, there's going to be things that you have to identify as, if this thing keeps happening for 6 months or a year, it's going to cost me a bunch of money, and I need to get ahead of it before this thing becomes a habit. So that is what I find so unique about your business, and it just has to be difficult. I can't imagine that it's anything less than difficult, just maintaining the appearance and relationship with all those people. So many moving parts.
There are a lot of parts, but if you look at each one, trying to look at each one individually and not let them pile up, so to speak, it is easier on your own mental psyche, for one, and that's first and foremost, because if you're not in the space that you need to be in order to deal with things, then the rest of the day goes down the tubes very quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As far as it's funny that you mentioned that if you don't nip things in the bud, then they have a tendency to be a problem. And in the fall and winter, when we have winter sessions going on, the only place for us to have birthday parties is on the basketball court. But our basketball court has a glass wall on the one side that you can see the small field. Now, the small field is where all of the kids, the smaller kids, play. Well, when their team is here to play, mom and dad just don't bring the siblings. They normally bring grandma and grandpa on both sides. And if there is a divorce and you have stepmom, stepdad, and anybody else that comes along, we're not set up to have extended family members, at least 6 or 8 extended family members to fit in all of the bleachers that we have here. So what they like to do is get onto the basketball court and stand in front of the glass wall so they can watch the game that way. And I don't let people on there do that. I just, because they watch the game, but they don't watch the kids that they brought with them.
Right.
So the kids are on the basketball court playing with the soccer goals that we have on there for futsal, getting everything out. They turned my one pickleball net into a balance beam and bent the crap out of it. So it gets expensive when people don't pay any mind to what their kids are doing. So I end up by being the hard ass and say nobody's allowed in there unless you pay me $50 for the hour to be in there, because then the liability of everybody else being in there falls on you, which of course nobody wants to pay $50 for that.
Absolutely.
So that's my deterrent. But I had the one guy, got everybody out the one day, walked back into my office, and I keep hearing these basketballs bounce. I'm like, son of a gun, go running back out. And like, I said, okay, who all here is for the birthday party? Well, nobody raised their hand. I said, everybody off the court. There's a birthday party coming on here. You need to leave the court. So most everybody did, except this one guy. He's standing there looking at me like he's deer caught in headlights. And I'm like, sir, did you understand what I said? And he shook his head. I said, well, then you need to vacate the court. And he just stood there and looked at me. I said, do you need it in sign language or what? I get the heck out of the court. Come on, let's go. These people are coming in. Well, about 20 minutes later, he comes into the office and he says, I just want to let you know that you hurt my feelings. I said, let me get this straight. You walked into a spot in my facility without permission. And when I asked you to leave, you didn't want to leave. And you're mad at me for that. Do I have that correct? He said, well, yes. And I said, well, do me a favor. I said, read that sign that's on my wall. And he looked at it. I said, no, you need to read it out loud. He goes, put your big girl panties on and deal with it. I said, don't you ever come into my office again and tell me that I have hurt your feelings because you have done something wrong and I have asked you to not do it. I said, where is your spine, sir? I didn't use spine. I used another word. I said, I'm not sure, excuse me, if they're on your wife's nightstand or what. I said, but you really need to get them back. I said, because this is pretty sad. Well, you really hurt my feelings. I said, I think we've already established that you are a sensitive human being. Okay. Well, then next morning I come in, sit down at my desk, and I'm having a pretty decent morning. And Christopher looks at me. He says, so what happened here yesterday, Mom? I'm like, gosh. I said, you might have to be a little more specific than that. I said, so, well, things happen here on Sundays. You know that. And he said, this woman says that you hurt her feelings, her husband's feelings. I said, oh my God. He emasculated himself in front of me, and then he had to go home and emasculate himself in front of his wife.
And got his wife to call and complain.
Oh my gosh.
That's incredible.
So that's some of the crazy that I end up by having to deal with here, because everybody just thinks and then underneath the bleachers, for whatever reason, kids like to play under the bleachers. So I have all kind of things wrapped around the back and sides of the bleachers to try to keep the kids out from underneath there. Well, I go out the one day, the guy, he came in and he asked for a pair of scissors. And I just, for some reason, let me go out and see why he wanted those scissors. And here he is cutting through the rope that I had zigzagged across two poles that was wide enough for, kids to be able to shimmy through. And I looked at him. I said, what the hell are you doing? Well, my son wants to play under here. I said, give me those scissors. I said, I should cut your hands off for doing this. I said, holy Hannah, what is wrong with you? I said, your kid would get under there, crack his head open on one of those steel beams that are under there, the aluminum beams that are under there. I said, then you come out here and tell me it's my fault that your kid got hurt. I said, no. Unbelievable. I mean, I have stories like that from this place that, when we had a flood one day and some guys walking through the water while carrying an infant. And where are your brains?
Yeah, what's the plan here, sir?
And it's just the public, it throws you curveballs every single day. And
Absolutely.
It's not just once or twice a day. It is.
Sure.
It's consistent.
I'll tell you this. I thoroughly enjoy you as a person. And I can only imagine the experience of working with someone like yourself, because I am absolutely the dad of two small children that organizes the birthday parties and is absolutely also not... I don't suffer any nonsense either. I'm pretty clear and to the point and want to make things as quick and easy and painless as possible so people can go back to their week, their week or their weekend or whatever that may be. And I have a tremendous amount of appreciation, especially being in the B2B in the business world, for someone that is as straightforward and honest and doesn't suffer from the fear of saying the wrong thing to somebody. Honestly, that's refreshing. And my industry could use a little bit of that. So,
son tends to think it's a little bold and brash sometimes. I say, but honey,
You should meet my mom. You should meet my mom. Yeah, my mom, she practices a lot of similar language. You know, she suffers no nonsense. She
well,
worked way too hard my entire childhood and my brother's childhood and my sister's childhood to, like, my mom doesn't even want to repeat herself. You know what I mean? Like, if you
no,
didn't
don't make
hear,
me
she
do my
doesn't even, don't
savage
even say
life.
what, she'll walk away. Like, but I mean that what I say. I enjoy you as a person. Talking to you every single time has been extremely pleasant, and I appreciate your time on the podcast. Tell me this: how can we support you? How can myself down here in Atlanta, what can we put together that would bring some benefit to you guys?
Well, if you know any commercial developers or chains or whatever that are looking to do any new development and building new stores in the Mid-Atlantic region, send them my way, and I'll make sure that they are in good hands with Allstate.
Sure.
And as far as the indoor center is concerned, unless you're going to be up here in the area and you want to rent a field or whatever, or just if you have friends or relatives.
Well, we'll geo push it. So we'll try to push it as close to your area as we can. So it's birthday parties, field rentals, anything that your community center stuff. You know what I mean? What you would
Summer
think of your
camp,
rec
and then
gym or
we have the soccer and girls lacrosse from November through March, and we had the birthday parties are here. We also have had Celtic dance competitions.
Oh,
We've
wow.
had lightsaber competitions. The sheriff's department likes to train their canines here whenever they have any of their qualification testing that has to be done. If it's inclement weather, then they come and do it here. And I'll tell you what, it's one thing to watch that from on TV or whatever, but when you're there watching it and you're in the same sphere of that going on, whoa.
Yeah, I have an injury. Can you see my chin from where you are by chance? Can you see this injury on my chin?
You're very small on my
Yeah, I
screen.
figured it was because my webcam's far away. I went and did tactical training, single man breach and home defense training yesterday with the Barrow County Sheriff's Office in Georgia. And I got shot in the chin with a Glock 17T training handgun. And while we were there, which hurt like hell, by the way, it's a bullet, a real bullet, but it's just made out of wax and paint. So, hurts like hell. And as we were leaving was SWAT training, K9 training, breacher training for all those guys. So literally just yesterday, I have zero experience in my life with anything like that. And besides shooting my own guns, I do live in Georgia, but I had never seen anything like that until literally yesterday. And it blew me away.
It is wild, isn't it?
These dogs are on a string, and they are like just absolute incredible athletes. Like
they're intense. They are really intense.
Well, thank you again for your time on the podcast, Michelle. It really does mean a lot to me. I really enjoy the relationship that I've built with you. Anything that we can do for you, let me know. Give me a couple of weeks on the podcast. We'll handle everything, production wise. We'll get you anything that you guys want to use. I may have some connections for you in the commercial development space. I can't say I have a connection to someone looking to build, but I know which of my friends would know if that was a case.
That would be great.
Yeah, the one I have in mind works with. She's the person that you talk to when you're franchising. So when you want to, you're a quick service restaurant or anything like that, and you want to go from one location to 20 locations, or you have a signature honey mustard and you want to put it on the shelf at Kroger. She's that person, and she's really, really good at what she does. And I know that she probably has some contacts in that area. So
that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
although
absolutely.
A lot of businesses are trying to get the hell out of Maryland after the crazy ass taxes package that they just did here and finished up in April. Anything in the tech industry, they're popping across the state line to either Pennsylvania or Virginia.
I can understand that. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
Maryland sucks as far as its one party rule, and
Sure.
it's not they're not nice people.
Sure.
They have a spending
What
problem.
did you say to me the first time on the phone? The armpit of Washington D.C. Is that what you told
we are
me?
the armpit of DC because it's almost like the Wheaties. Let's give it to Maryland. Let's see if they eat it. You know, I'm not kidding. It's like holy. I don't like being the guinea pig here.
Sure.
It's tough. So, but whatever crazy goes on, Maryland it races to be better or crazier than
Yeah,
California.
faster to the crazier.
Faster to the crazy.
Well, until next time, for everybody listening, burn the ship.